take this opportunity to welcome everyone here this evening and to say thank you for the time you're investing in listening to Rob Astorino, because I think when you leave here, in fact, I shouldn't say I think, I know when you leave here, you're going to be energized to go out and get your friends and family and associates to vote for Rob. Because Rob is the guy New York State has been waiting for. I'm going to ask that everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. How great is it that we have a candidate like Rob Astorino? God bless America, from the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet, sweet home.
Pleasure for me to make this introduction this evening. Rob Astorino, who is a Hawthorne resident and a graduate of Westlake High School in Thornwood, Westchester, and a graduate of Fordham University. He's a devoted husband and father of 4 children. He is a man who has turned things around in Westchester County. He has successfully cut spending by 4%, reduced the county property tax levy by 2%, created nearly 30,000 new private sector jobs. And he's given Westchester County the highest credit rating in the state of New York. He will be a governor that we can count on to cut taxes, create jobs, improve education, fight corruption, and strengthen our communities. He is the man who will make New York State a great state once again. It is my pleasure to introduce to you the next governor of the state of New York, who will go in and get the job done for us.
Well, Tony said it all, so have a good night, everybody. So how are you? This is great. Thank you very much for letting me come here tonight. I really do appreciate it. And I see, and I didn't know they were coming, but I see from Huntington, my cousins, the Catrones. Please stand back. Now they're going to tell the whole family how before we start, Tony, thank you very much. Mary, that was wonderful, wonderful singing. And I do want to thank our assembly members who are here tonight. They have been really great advocates for you here in Suffolk County, and a big help to me, too, as we progress in this campaign. So, guys, thank you very much for coming. I know Senators Flanagan and Marcelino also represent this area too, so we are all working together. This is going to be a really good year. Not if I win, yeah, well, thank you. If we get together and we actually come out and vote, because we can win this race, and I'm going to tell you how. I'll give you the inside scoop, and then I'm going to tell you about New York and why I'm running. In this race, by the way, half the vote comes from upstate New York. People don't realize that in the governor's race. Half comes from upstate New York. And we can do very well up there. And we need to. About 29% comes from New York City. And of that, we've got to win about 30% of the total vote out of New York City. Doable. Okay, Joe Lota got 25%. So we only need to do a little bit better and get about 30%. Which means that really the whole race is going to come down to exactly where I want it to be. Westchester, my county, Nassau, and Suffolk. So this is an absolute winnable race, and I'll take you through it a little bit more in a moment. But here's the question, no matter where I go, whether it's here in Huntington, whether it's in any part of New York State, the question I ask every single New Yorker is the same. And it has to be answered. It's not a rhetorical question. It will get answered on November 4th. But here's the question. As a state, under this governor, are we winning or are we losing? Real easy. It's winning or losing. Because in life, you're either moving ahead or you're falling back. Same thing if you have a business, right? If you're standing still, you're not doing good. Islanders. We don't want to answer that question. Winning or losing. So, as a state, are we winning or losing? And Governor Cuomo would have you think everything is great. It's wonderful. Taxes are down, right? Oh, sure. You know that, right? But here's the question. Are we winning or losing? Here's the answer now. Under any objective standard, New York is getting its clock cleaned against all the other states in America. We are dead last 50th out of 50 states. Dead last in all the categories that matter to us. We have the highest taxes in America. It's not even close. We have the worst business climate in America, the worst economic outlook in America. The AARP says it's the worst state to retire in. It's the worst state to make a living in. If you have a small business, it just came out that this is one of the worst states for small business because the regulations are perhaps the worst in America. Now we know what the democratic culture corruption is like in Albany. And by the way, that corruption, when a politician from Albany goes away in handcuffs, it's not one politician. You and I, we're paying a stealth corruption tax in this state. Because of the deals that they cut, who do you think's paying for that? We are. And all of this means that unfortunately, this state leads all the other states in America in outflow of residents. We, unfortunately, have lost 400,000 New Yorkers in 3.5 years. 400,000 New Yorkers have thrown in the towel on this state. They've given hope. And you know what I ask people? I say, you know, some people are a little bit taken back by this, but I basically say living in New York right now has become like a prison sentence. And here's why. how many days until we can leave? That's what everyone starts to think. A couple more years, I retire, I am out of here. A couple more years, the kids go to college, we're putting up the house, and we're gone. And where are they going? They're going to North Carolina, they're going to South Carolina, they're going to Georgia, Florida, Texas, you name it. They're also going, by the way, to North Dakota. North Dakota? Are you kidding me? North Dakota. You know why?
Oil.
The energy boom that they are blessed with and taking advantage of, as opposed to New York, blessed with it upstate, and refuse to go forward like every other state in America is. So, I was actually talking to the governor of North Carolina, and you know what he said to me? He said, "Y'all stop standing down your residents here, they're changing our accents." But unfortunately, that's what's happening. And we all know people who have moved, our family, our friends, whomever. So I'm here to tell you that it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't. And we shouldn't settle for this either, by the way. Why are we settling for this? For bad politicians who constantly do the same thing to make it worse. Now, when I ran in '09 in Westchester, Westchester, by the way, is 49% Democrat, 24% Republican. It's tough to reign if you're a Republican. So here's what I heard. Oh, did I hear it? You can't win? Are you kidding me? You can't possibly win. And it's like stages. The first stage, everyone rolls their eyes. This is ridiculous. You can't win. Second stage, which is where we are right now in this race, is, you know, I don't really love the other guy. I can see maybe. And then it gets going crazy in the fall where things really start to happen and people pay attention. So in 2009, here was the scenario. At this point, July of '09, in 2-to-1 Democratic Westchester, I was 30 points down in that race. Against an incumbent who was popular, you know, who had all the machine behind him. But what he didn't have is what we have. We've got the right political climate. We have the issues on our side. We're going to be outspent, just like I was in '09. I was outspent 5-to-1. 5-to-1 in 2-to-1 Democratic Westchester. Outspent almost 6 million to 1.2 million. So, they're going to win the air war, but we're going to win the ground game. And if we can win in Westchester, then we can absolutely, positively win in New York. Because Westchester looks like New York. You may not know this. We're the 4th most diverse county in all of New York. Of our 1 million people, 22% Hispanic, 15% African American, 8th largest Jewish county in America, a growing Asian and Indian population. Yeah, we look like New York. And the best advice I did not take was this: don't go there, they won't vote for you. Okay? There and they can be any place that traditionally doesn't vote Republican. So here's what the Fox said. The Fox said, don't go there, they won't vote for you. And I ignored the Fox. And we went, and I spent time in African-American neighborhoods. African-American businesses, communities, property owners, Black Baptist churches. I went to Latino neighborhoods. Yo hablo español. Y este es muy útil y muy importante. Okay, it is useful, it is important, and that breaks down the barriers. And we went into predominantly Jewish and liberal communities. Home of the Clintons, where Chappaqua is, home of Cuomo. And you know what? On election day, when we won by 13 points, we had won a majority of the Hispanic vote, 25% of the African American vote, and we won where the Clintons live. Huh. So just like '09, we are going everywhere in New York to preach our message. And I am telling you, everywhere we go, people are nodding their head yes. Because they know our state is deeply in trouble. And if we don't make an about-face, if we don't really make the tough decisions, and now, then there are no opportunities for our kids who live here to ever buy a home or to live in this state. My kids, my son turns 11 on Thursday. My daughter is 9. My other daughter is 4, starting school at kindergarten in September. That's going to be a brutal day. That little baby, go to God. Anyway, but they'll have no chance. None. Unless we make the right decisions now.
Common Core's gotta go.
So I'll talk about Common Core. Oh yeah, I'm going to talk about Common Core. So anyway, that's where we're at. And if any of you doubt that we can win this race, see Cantor, Eric in Washington. See Astorino, Spano in 2009. And you can also see your neighbor in Nassau County, Ed Mangano, against Swazi in 2009 as well. They gave him no chance either. So it could absolutely be done. And that's the politics of this. The government is, we've got to make some significant changes in the state. In Westchester, I came in with a $1.8 billion budget. We're at 1.7 4 years later because we prioritized. We didn't just perpetuate, keep throwing money at it. We actually prioritized. And we did cut the property tax levy more than any county in New York State, or froze the budget for 4 years with a fifth coming. So we can do it, and we made tough choices. Believe me, I had the protests. I heard everything. I heard war on blank every week, war on something. That's all I kept hearing. But you know what? We had to bring a healthy balance back to Westchester to what we want versus what we could actually afford. Because someone's always paying. And it's the senior who is back to work now, by the way, at Home Depot, just so she or he could stay in their home. How sad is that? Or people just starting out who don't have the means either. So the middle class is getting completely squeezed in every direction. And we've got to make some tough choices, which is what we did in Westchester. So, I got to say, I love this format, by the way. My background, for those of you who don't know, is radio and television. And my radio format was always talk radio. So, in Westchester, we did 25, in the last year and a half, 25 town hall meetings, all over the place. And I went to the belly of the beast, you know, where, boy, they got mad. And I went to friendly places and everywhere in between, because no question is off limits. So, let's have fun over the next hour. Ask any question that you want. And if we can't get you an answer, which I suppose we will be able to, but we'll always be able to take information down. And if you get to a point later, like, I should have asked them that, just send us an email. Now, Common Core is one thing that is important. So let me talk to you about that for a quick second. As a parent, I have been sitting at the kitchen table with my kids, the two of them who were in school this past year, obviously under Common Core. And so I have done my homework on this, and I was on MSNBC, and they try to put it into a neat little box. If you're against Common Core, then you are against standards. You want dumb kids. That's what they do. That's the whole argument now. And my argument is no. There are many ways to achieve higher standards, which I want, which I demand, by the way. And to say that it's got to be this, and this, by the way, is completely untested. It's a whole thing born out of Bill Gates and his foundation, and the federal government, and the states. I'll grant them that, the National Governors Association. But what happened was, we had something we were working on in this state called the Lost Standards. And the Board of Regents were working on this up to 2010. And this would elevate the standards in this state. It would make sure there was local control, transparency, decision-making on the local level by teachers and parents and obviously principals and school boards. And all of a sudden in 2010, because they had already finished the English Language Arts Standards, and they were working on the math, when Race to the Top came, and the state was in a big deficit, as many states were, And dangling were millions and millions and millions of dollars, and billions. And New York said, yup, stopped the standards that they were working on abruptly, took the Common Core money, raced to the top, $700 million, and it's been a disaster. So here's this massive program born really out of federal government, because in order for you to be in Common Core, one company does the testing and the diagnostics and putting together all of the standards, and that's Pearson. So everyone must teach to that test in order to advance. So you can't tell me that this is not guided by the federal government. Of course it is. And you cannot deviate more than 15% on these standards. And if you love high taxes, which I know you all do, this is going to be the motherlode of all unfunded mandates, because the federal money is gone, and we are left with all these things we must do to comply with Common Core. So I have said, I believe, as other states are now doing, get out of Common Core, go back to the law standards, let them finish that, and let's move on and make New York education better than it's ever been, but we could do it right here in New York and make it New York-based, as opposed to everything. So with that, we have started a third ballot independent party called Stop Common Core. We're the first in the nation. It's gotten a lot of attention over the last week that I am leading the charge on. And if you are inclined on this issue, we have petitions that we would love for you to carry. Take them with you. And we have to get 15,000 signatures of any registered voter in the state of New York. And that should be fairly easy if everyone does a little bit, which is 10 or 15 or 20. And we will then have a third ballot where people in the state can make a very big statement on Common Core. And I think that's one of the things that Andrew Cuomo fears the most. So please get involved. All right, so how do you want to handle this? Questions. What do we want to do with this? Why don't you just put up a hand and we'll figure it. Stick with Common Core.
How will you assure us that this won't be a rebranding like other states have done?
Well, because what I've said is we already started working on something, unlike the other states. We have already started working on something. I talked to Saul Cohen, who was a Board of Regent. He lives in Larchmont in Westchester, and we had a long discussion about where they were in the process. And he has said, as have many other educators, by the way, that Common Core standards may very well be age inappropriate, and I could see that in some of this. On those children that excel, Common Core is probably holding them back. I'm concerned about those with individual education plans and special education students. My wife is a special ed teacher. My wife is a special ed teacher. I'm the product of public schools. My kids go to public schools. I started on the school board. I was elected school board member. So for anyone to question my public education credentials and belief, which is what some of them who are for Common Core are trying to do, is nonsense. And so again, what we would be doing is rolling back, getting out, and getting back to where we were, which is probably going to take a little time, but get back to where they were and get back to the basics in this state. Yes, sir?
With the new standards that you're talking about, would they put a financial burden on the local school districts?
Well, look, anything for schools is costly. Let's be honest.
I understand, but there's a budget now.
Yeah.
Increased by the appreciable
Right now, we've got massive bills coming due because to comply with Common Core, you need infrastructure, software, a whole bunch of things that are going to be coming on due and continuous.
So if that
It would go back to where it was before that, and the decision making would be on the local level, which I think is where it should be. Let's go to the cheap seats.
Could you elaborate on the hassle you're having with this thing with HUD going on up in your area with
Oh.
many of them?
My three favorite letters, H-U-D. Yeah. So just a real synopsis, and I tell you this because, as I warned 5 years ago, Westchester, admittedly, because the Deputy Secretary of HUD, Housing and Urban Development, said at the time that Westchester is the test case for the rest of the country. Now there's a decision, as you might know, Huntington decision, which we have to adhere to, and every community has to adhere to, on zoning. We are obligated, my predecessor signed an agreement with the federal government in 2009, before I got in, that requires Westchester County to build 750 units of what's called fair and affordable housing. By HUD's own definition, it's low income. Call whatever you want. We're building it. We have to build it, and we are building it. We're complying with the terms of the agreement. 750 units over 31 different communities are eligible based on the 2000 census. $51 million to do this, at least. And whether we like it or not, we're building, and we're well ahead of schedule. We're at 400 and something of the units completed already. We're in full compliance. That's not what this was all about, though. And the federal government is now admitting that in many ways, because they're demanding that Westchester go, quote, outside the four corners of the settlement. In other words, do things that are not in the settlement that we're making you do now on new demands. And the crux of the issue is this. The federal government is saying that if you live in a community that is disproportionately white, then therefore there is discrimination and segregation. And as such, the local community and or the Justice Department needs to come in and do away with a lot of the zoning regulations that they feel restricts high-density housing in any neighborhood. Now, they have already said that quarter-acre, listen to this, quarter-acre single-family residential zoning is potentially discriminatory and segregated. Quarter-acre. And what they would do is take away any restrictions that limit height, density, acreage, number of bedrooms in any community. So if you live in that quarter-acre or half-acre residential neighborhood, the federal government is saying that a 13-story apartment building could be right in the middle of it, government subsidized, because there needs to be an equal mix, in their view, of ethnicity, of race, of income, etc. Now, anyone can live anywhere they choose. There are no laws that prevent anyone. Zoning protects neighborhoods. Zoning permits or prohibits what can be built and where, not who lives there. And that is a very big distinction. And what we have said is, we as, by this settlement, had to analyze every zoning district in Westchester. And we did it 8 times. Because every time we did it, the conclusion was there is no zoning that prohibits. There is no exclusionary zoning. Pace University independently looked at the zoning and our conclusions and came to the same conclusion. And even the federal monitor, who makes $1,050 an hour courtesy of Westchester taxpayers, who works for HUD and is supposed to be the referee, even he came to the conclusion that there is no zoning in Westchester based on race or ethnicity. Then he made up a new one that wasn't even in the settlement, socioeconomic. Well, you know what? Duh. It's expensive to live in Nassau and Suffolk and Westchester. That doesn't make it discriminatory, because there are plenty of places I can't live in Westchester. I can't afford to live where the Clintons live. I just can't. So I live where I live, on a quarter-acre piece of property in the town of Mount Pleasant, with $16,000 of taxes, in a home that's about 1,800 square feet. But anyone can live on my block if they can afford it. And we're building affordable housing. I believe in that, and we are building that. But there's a difference to have the federal government say, you are discriminatory, you are segregated, with zero proof, by the way. They have none, can't come up with it. And Westchester was first, Nassau has been sued, Oyster Bay was sued, Suffolk, you're next. And so we have a governor who lives in one of those 31 communities who not once, in my 5 years as county executive, we have reached out by letter, by public statements, asking the governor of New York to help Westchester County protect itself from an overreaching, very radical federal government. And he has done nothing. You know why? Because I think he's rooting for his old buddies at HUD where he was. And so this is the agenda, and it will be coming to a community near you if you do not protect yourself. And so I am fighting vociferously for the people of Westchester on property rights, and we will continue to build affordable housing. We will continue to meet our obligations under this contract, but we're not going to go any further. And I'll be damned if I'm going to let the federal government come in. The Wall Street Journal just wrote a very big editorial about it last week, and they're right.
My name is Michelle, and I just wanted to say hello and say thank you for coming and bring to attention the fact to people who don't know that there are thousands of people, tens of thousands of Long Islanders who are still homeless since Superstorm Sandy. The government has done very little to help us, and until 2 weeks ago, my son slept in a closet for 20 months. It's awful. We have a lot of Superstorm Sandy victims who are here, and we need to address that.
First of all, I am sorry that you're still displaced, still waiting for the government and the bureaucracy to do its job. The problem I have with this is a couple-fold. Number one, people need answers. When we had Superstorm Sandy in Westchester, one of the frustrating things was Con Edison was overwhelmed. And people who had no power just wanted an answer, if nothing else. Whether it was good news or bad news, when is the lights coming on so I can make arrangements? And day after day, they were sleeping in their home thinking the lights were coming back on, or couldn't get online, or couldn't even get through the maze that was Con Ed. So what I said to the president and CEO of Con Ed, you are coming to Westchester, I'm opening the county center, and I want Con Ed representatives to be there with information. When someone walks in, they plop in their address, and you're going to tell them when a truck is coming to their home. That's all they want, and they should have that answer. And he did. And it changed quickly, the response, and people were satisfied that at least they were getting something, as opposed to, please hold on. Now, for you, it's the same. Where are the answers? At least get the answers through this bureaucracy that people should have. Do you know that all these startup New York ads that you've seen on TV? First of all, I mean, come on, really? This is the place that's open for business, New York? But while people are still using cots, people are still displaced and not in their homes from Hurricane Sandy, part of that money, that relief money, Andrew Cuomo took and is putting startup New York ads, which, by the way, are just a thinly disguised political campaign. So, how dare he take the money from HUD for you and put it on TV for him? Second thing, Long Island Railroad strike. I don't know about you, but I was absolutely flabbergasted when the governor of the state of New York, who appoints the MTA, who the MTA is negotiating this contract with Long Island Railroad, who, when Andrew Cuomo was faced with a deadline in negotiations in New York City for the subway and buses, all of a sudden the MTA was fair game for him to go in and try to reach a settlement. The other day to say it's not my job to negotiate or to come in is completely disingenuous, because it's the same darn people who are negotiating the contract with the LIRR who negotiated the contract with the subways and buses of New York City. So, I mean, if this were a Republican, it would be a war on the suburbs. Well, Andrew Cuomo has an obligation to get in there and start working on this settlement so 300,000 Long Islanders can get into the city to get to work, or to get to a doctor's appointment, or to get anywhere that they need to get to. So, I will tell you this, as governor, the last thing I will ever say, it's not my job. You know, it is your job. Yes, ma'am.
thank you for coming down.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. I'm just going to change the subject just a little. How soon can the SAFE Act be repealed when you get into office? And I say when you get into office.
When Sandy Hook happened, and Sandy Hook is very close to Westchester. You know, our northeast part of the county borders on Fairfield County, and it's pretty close. In fact, my mother works 5 minutes from there or so. And when Sandy Hook happened, I remember it was Friday. It was a Friday, and I was driving around and I heard it on the radio, and I got very emotional because obviously I have kids that are that age. And I went home that night, and there was no way we were going to be able to shield the kids from this. I mean, that's all anyone was talking about on TV and radio and their friends, etc. So my wife and I decided we'll talk to them about this. And the question came around, and my son said to me, "Daddy, if a shooter comes into my school, I think I should run, try to escape." And my daughter said to me, "I think I'll try to play dead or hide." And I said, "What's the right answer?" Now, I have no idea what the right answer is. And I knew as a father I had to talk to them. As county executive, did I have a role to play in something like this? So we did several things following Sandy Hook, vastly different than what Andrew Cuomo did. Andrew Cuomo's goal was to get the biggest headline possible and do something, anything. And what he did was he rushed a bill through the legislature in the middle of the night without any public comment, any press being able to see it. I think most of the legislators probably hadn't even seen it. And what it did was nothing to make us any safer. In fact, the vast majority of police officers surveyed in New York State, 92% I think it is, said that this bill did nothing, will do nothing to make anyone safer. All it did was, for legal gun owners, it actually did take away their rights. And Governor Cuomo used the word confiscation. Now, this bill was so bad that it was found partially unconstitutional by a federal judge. So his goal was to get a headline that really isn't going to do anything. There are aspects of it, like the mental health and stricter penalties, that I'm fine with. However, we have said we would repeal this. Now, I'm running with Sheriff Chris Moss. He's my lieutenant governor candidate. Chris Moss is from Chemung County. Who knows where Chemung is? All right, good. Chemung County is to the west of Binghamton. And he is the president of the New York State Sheriff's Association and one of the biggest outspoken critics on this particular law, as are almost every sheriff in the state of New York. So we have said we would repeal this, and we would do what I did in Westchester. I want to focus on something that actually matters and going forward would make a difference. So we looked at two things. First, we actually decided, and we worked with the Centers for Disease Control. They came up, and we had a huge forum on treating violence as a disease, because in many ways it is. And the mental health component of this is something that we have to tackle. It's sometimes an uncomfortable discussion, but it's not to stigmatize, it's actually to get help or to prevent. So we did two things. First, we worked with all law enforcement and educators. Every school district in Westchester, public, private, parochial, were represented, and all law enforcement, federal, county, local, state, on the best protocols for buildings, for children and schools, on actually what to do to harden the security of those buildings. The second thing, which is ongoing, was the mental health aspect. Two things that we really targeting, absenteeism. What we found is 13 to 18-year-olds, if they're chronically absent from school for whatever reason, some of it is legitimate, some of it is just I don't want to go to school, the likelihood that they will graduate diminishes greatly. The likelihood that they will end up on the bad path of life, drugs, violence, gangs, whatever, jail, increases amazing. So absenteeism, get them back in school. And the second issue is, if someone falls, you know what to do, right? You go, you get a Band-Aid, and you clean a cut. We are focusing on what's called youth mental health first aid. And we're the first to do it countywide in New York State. And we're working with parents, coaches, any adult really that comes in contact frequently with children to learn about the warning signs, the cries for help. Because so often we just kind of look the other way, we don't know how to handle it. But you could actually be a first responder, if you will, for a child who is desperately needing help. And then turn it over to the professionals. And sometimes it's just a little thing. Are you okay? Can we talk? And this is something that's profound, and this is something that is ongoing. 13 to 18-year-olds, 20% at some point in their adolescence will have a debilitating mental health issue. That's pretty frightening. 1 out of every 5 kids in high school are going to have a debilitating mental health issue. That's pretty big. So these are the issues that actually matter going forward, and that's what we're focusing on, and that's what we focus on in the state, by the way. Yes, sir.
By the way, I'm a transplant from Westchester. 25 years ago, I came out of
What? Go back home. What are you doing here? Where in Westchester?
I was a lifeguard in Tibbetsbrook Park.
Oh, good.
Living
Very good.
to Lincoln High School, Magnolia College.
Very nice.
Recently I read, and this might be a little along some of the lines that you were talking about a minute ago. I read that it's $165,000 a year to keep a prisoner in Rikers Island. There's a $2.5 billion budget sitting on that little rock. What are we doing in this state about crime prevention? You mentioned some of those things, but what are we doing about rehabilitation and the cost of this penal system, which is choking the life out of the taxpayers?
Yeah, but one of the things that the governor's doing that I have a big concern about, he's closing a lot of these prisons around the state, and they're letting them out. Which to me, I'm not a criminal justice major, but I don't think that's probably the best thing to do. This is an issue, do you decriminalize some of the minor crimes, which is like the Rockefeller laws for, minor drug offenses? That's an area where there's legitimate debate, and I'm open to having that kind of debate. But a criminal who is in jail needs to stay in jail. A lot of this too, it depends. I mean, you've got, just like any employee, you've got costs for the corrections officers and the hard costs for the meals and the cable TV and everything else going on. But I think, first and foremost, common sense has to prevail, and that is, do we keep them in there or not? And I would say...
It's pretty good for them. It's
well,
so easy going. They get to work out, watch TV.
College degrees.
Well, oh my God, don't get me going on this. Have you heard about this? Have you heard about this? So, my wife and I are scrimping every month, like probably many, to put whatever we can in the 529 accounts for our kids. Yeah. And so the governor's proposal is to give free college tuition to inmates. We're paying for that when I'm trying desperately to put any amount of money away for my kids so they can go to college. To me, this is, again, where the priorities are wrong in this state.
Right.
You gotta have them knock over I needed an answer on the payback as an adult.
Repeal it, I've said it.
Yeah, how quickly?
Can't do it now. You've got to give me till January.
To repeal the whole thing.
Yes.
Not in little bits where you...
No, I've said repeal the whole act.
The whole act.
Yes. Are you from Westchester?
I am.
You are?
I am.
All right.
I
You're up next.
I left a year ago, but I was raised in Hershel. So.
Okay, good.
I own you. My question to you is, what is your stand on charter schools?
Charter school. So, charter schools. Look, I have said that I do favor charter schools. However, I do believe that the original intent of charter schools has changed a lot since they first began. What I did not know until recently, and I'm glad I learned this, that there's, in some instances, no accountability for some charter schools who do get either state assistance or direct money. And so that's an area that I believe needs to be reformed, because if they are going to get tax dollars, then they got to be accountable to them. And the controller at this point has no oversight whatsoever over charter schools. So am I in favor of them? Yes, but I do believe that there needs to be better accountability. And we also have to look at exactly where they're going, because there is a deep need in some areas, and there, quite frankly, is not a need in others.
Would you still raise the cap?
Well, there's no limit at this. First of all, I know the cap is, but they're way below the cap. So at this point, there's no need to raise the cap. No. Yes, sir.
I got a two-part question. My name is John Spinella.
Hello, John.
I live in Greenlawn. And about the correction department.
Yes.
I worked on Rikers Island for 25 years. I was a civilian plumber. And it was the hardest job I ever did. Walk up over there from the inmates. Always worried about my safety, but I stood there. They stayed there because of the money, good salary, and the health care. Thank God I stayed there for the health care.
Why they let you out?
I was on day release, you know what I mean? But anyway, that's not what I really want to say. I'm a high-power shooter. I shoot 2 matches a month, the Roslyn and the Mechanic Rifle Club, all right? I just shot a match Sunday. That heat, you wouldn't believe how hot it was. Anyway, we shoot 200 rounds each quarter, each match. And I own 2 AR-15s, match rifles. Now, I had to register, but now I'm not allowed to buy any more because I buy them because the barrels wear out. I can buy a new rifle. I can't buy it in New York because it's the same match. It's disgusting. I mean, I got investigated when I bought it. How much more investigated? I got 2 pistols. I got investigated with them too. I mean, but yet, I'm the criminal. I'm the criminal. I mean, it's a sport for me. I need 200 rounds. Another thing I want to get into. They stopped buying, selling ammunition online. I can't buy it. I shop for the best buys. I can't do that. Now I got to go to a legal dealer and buy the rounds, and then they're going to investigate me if I buy over 1,000 rounds or something.
Well, this gets into the business climate of New York, too. Remington, which is one of the oldest manufacturers in New York.
I want to show you the stupidity of this law. I got an M1 Garand. I have an M1 Carbine, which is a World War II rifle. They got them classified as antiques. The M1 Carbine has a 15-round clip. I can keep that. No, I didn't have to register. I mean, I had to register. The M1 Garand, I said it wrong. The M1 Carbine has a magazine with 15 rounds. That's an antique. I had to register. The M1 Garand is an 8-round clip. I can do just as much damage, but I didn't have to register that. I can do just as much damage with 8 rounds and 15 rounds. I mean, this is just stupidity of this.
Well, even the experts have admitted, even those who very much in favor of the SAFE Act, have said that it is all cosmetic.
I want the people to hear how stupid they don't know all the
We know it.
We know it.
Let me just finish what I started to say, because it's very emblematic of what's happening in New York State. The governor made a comment which I could not believe he said, and he's never apologized. And he said that if you don't share his views on abortion, on the Second Amendment, or on marriage, that you're an extremist and you have no right to be in New York. I could not believe that the governor would say something. But what that statement did was Remington, which was ready to expand in upstate New York, in Herkimer County, instead decided to go to Alabama. And 200 jobs are expanding in Alabama as opposed to in Ilion, where the plant is systematically starting to ramp down. And for an industry that means everything, by the way, to that county, and an industry like Remington, or a company like Remington, which is one of the most well-known in the country with regard to how long they've been manufacturing, they're all starting to leave. They're all leaving New York. Yes?
I'm a mental health practitioner, and I work with...
I think I could talk to you for a little while.
Insurance came out. Do you have Obamacare?
accept that.
A couple of things that we have going on in New York, in addition to the obvious breakdown in the mental health system, is the heroin problem, the prescription drug problem. And we have, and I can't for the life of me remember the name of the law, but there's this lovely little law, it's like HUD for the mentally ill, where they say it is discriminatory to have the mentally ill in group homes and not in good neighborhoods. I want to move to Belterre, by the way, just so you know, I'm moving to Belterre because I want to. So, like, what do you see as the solution? I mean, we're closing hospitals.
Wait, are you talking about heroin or are you talking about the group homes?
It's both. The mental health and the heroin problem are so intertwined into the micro-population. There's such a crossover, you know, between both.
Well, on the Padovan law specifically, I've had my fights with that in my town where they wanted to put many group homes. In Westchester, 65% of the property is tax exempt. And I bet in Nassau and Suffolk it's probably similar. And when you think about it, there is no way under the state law, unless it's an over-concentration, that's the only opportunity that they would make a decision to not allow a group home. And, you know, to me, it doesn't seem fair. But we also, and I think we have big hearts here. You know, we want to take care of people who need help in this state. I don't think anyone's going to argue with that. But again, it gets back to the balance.
But they're closing the group homes and they're releasing people into the communities. That's
integration, right.
Right.
On the heroin issue, one of the things that we have done in Westchester, I know Sheriff Moss has done in Chemung County, is not only equipping our first responders with Narcan, which reverses the effects quickly so first responders can get there and does save lives. We have there's an epidemic right now, real serious epidemic in New York, where this drug is coming in from Canada, it's coming in from all over the place, and Mexico.
Our illustrious border.
Yeah. So it is a serious, serious problem that we're at least working on. If God forbid somebody is overdosing, we can at least reverse the effects to get him or her to the hospital. But I mean, this has to be, you can toughen the laws all you want, but you also need to educate people. And you know what? In a bad economy, you see a lot of this happen. It's cyclical.
Just a point of information on that.
Yeah.
Between the police, EMT, and fire personnel, there were over 365, 500 and something plus incidents of using the narcotic.
In where?
In Suffolk County.
Suffolk County
over the last 12 months.
Yes?
Obamacare?
Obamacare. Is that the end of the sentence?
What can you say?
Look, this is another law that obviously was passed without anybody reading it. The unintended consequences are starting to be felt right now. If you look at the 8 million people that have signed up, that they say, the majority of those are Medicaid recipients. These are people who qualify for Medicaid anyway, and now they're signing up for Medicaid. About 25% or more of people, of that 8 million, were people who lost their insurance because of Obamacare, and were able to get on somewhere else or through the exchange. They're basically put into the exchange as opposed to from the free market. So, look, there's not a question about it. I mean, every doctor I talk to, they are absolutely petrified of what's going on with this system now. And the unintended consequences are enormous. And it's part of the reason why the economies continue to drag. And we're still feeling, I mean, it's still happening. I mean, it's not in any way done. It's still happening. And as it continues to roll out, you know what just happened in New York State the other day? You know what they requested, the insurance companies requested as an increase in premiums? 20%. 20%.
Don't get sick.
Yes.
That was really the
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Hi, Rob. My name's Matt Harris. I work here in Huntington.
Hi, Matt.
Back in January, our power company was taken over by PSEG.
Yep.
Our electric rates immediately went 19 cents a kilowatt to 22.5 cents a kilowatt, which I believe is the highest in the nation. I was told that it was a power supply surcharge. And I tried to get answers as to exactly what that meant when our oil supply was actually cheaper, but I wasn't really given a good answer on that. Here in the town of Huntington, our illustrious supervisor and the town board is fighting LIPA over a tax certiorari. What can be done at a state level from a public service level to try to bring down our electric rates here in the Suffolk County?
Well, I know this issue is important. You've got the Northport, you've got the Port Jeff facility. In Westchester, we have Indian Point nuclear power, which I absolutely support because it is very, very safe. It gets more scrutiny from the federal government than anything. And the governor has said in Westchester, too, that we should close down Indian Point without any supply to replace it. The issue here, and this is one of the reasons why I'm absolutely supporting safe natural gas exploration. We have 31 states. We have 31 states that are blessed with natural gas. 30 states are successfully and safely drilling for natural gas. New York is the only one that's not permitting it to go forward. When you have an economy that is in shambles, especially upstate, where you have the highest energy costs in America right here, and that would bring in billions of dollars in revenue, put a lot of people back to work, and also, obviously, lower our energy costs, just like it's happening in these other states. And quite frankly, the only reason that Andrew Cuomo, who is politically paralyzed on this issue, the only reason he is not going forward, because I think he knows in his heart of hearts and in his brain this is the right thing to do, is because Yoko Ono says no. But that's not how you lead. Seriously, that's not how you lead. And I have said that we would absolutely move forward on this. And you look at other states, Democratic governors and Republican governors. The President of the United States has said that natural gas exploration is vital for our country, that it should be done, and it has been done. He supports it. The EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, supports it. Interior Department, Energy Department. I look towards the Democratic governor of Colorado, Governor Hickenlooper, who is in a very environmentally sensitive state like Colorado, who is a geologist by trade, and has brought together the environmental groups, the business community, and the natural or the oil and gas industries, and they put sensible regulations and protections and have moved forward. And that's exactly what we should be doing in New York, and that's what we will be doing next year. That's one of the reasons why we
I have two questions. First, on the MTA payroll tax, would you repeal that totally?
Yeah, it's something I absolutely want to repeal, because this is another strike against any small business. This is crushing people. It's crushing municipalities, by the way. You know, we are stuck with it in our municipalities, our county. It's over $1 million for Westchester on this payroll tax. And another thing, it was just a money grab. That's all this is. We are getting nickel and dimed to death in this state. Yep.
And the other question is, would you use your pen to repeal the statement? I don't think you're going to get through Democratic, Assembly.
You can, and I'll tell you how. 2 steps. The Assembly, as our Assembly members know, their friends in New York City who control the Assembly, first of all, the governor through the budget process can defund it. Okay? The governor through the budget process can do a lot. And they will not have enough votes to either change it or override it because the Senate and enough Republicans in the Assembly. And if the Assembly Democrats want something that's important, they ain't going to get anything until we start getting some stuff moving forward. So, Roger Stahl back here wants to ask a question. This cowboy shirt.
Where are all the billions of dollars in tourism? I mean, you go into New York City, you can't even walk, it's so crowded. The New York
cameras are the most dangerous things there.
All the professional sports teams, the gambling, the lotto. Where is the billions of dollars going? I mean, the street should be paved in gold. Embellishing a little bit.
You know, We have the highest taxes in America, and we have third world roads. Because we don't prioritize in the state. It just goes into the big black hole, and everything just keeps turning over and adding and adding. And oftentimes the other side, the answer is more money. It's not. It's not more money. Oftentimes it's let's fix the problem. But that, I know, is tough. Because you got to make an important vote, or you got to be out there. But look, I did it in Westchester, and I got criticized heavy for some of the things I did. And there were protests and all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, the people of Westchester respected what we did, because I did what I said I was going to do, and we were reelected by the same 13-point margin in a much higher turnout, by the way. So, where's the money going? It's going right into the budget.
What do you propose to do to stem the tide of illegal immigrants and the billions of dollars that is taken from us, especially when we have a mayor such as de Blasio that's encouraging all of that dependency on government handout?
You know, I'm kind of lucky this year. I get to run against 3 people. Andrew Cuomo, Barack Obama, and Bill de Blasio. The municipal IDs that they just passed in New York City is a prime example. Look, as I said before, I think we are very compassionate. I know I am, I govern that way. I think probably everybody in this room is compassionate. And the issue that most of us are facing right now is we can hardly pay our own bills for the things that are absolutely necessary. And the municipal IDs is a complete breakdown of the system. You've got the federal government that is doing nothing on this issue. And they've had plenty of opportunities. President Bush put something together, working bipartisan. They almost had a vote on how to have some immigration reform. Didn't get done. President Obama comes in, and they control the House and the Senate. And he chose instead to focus on health care, which, you know, I'm not going to question him on this, it's up to him, but immigration could have and should have been done then when they had the votes to do something. They chose not to do it. And now it's just a blame game on everything. But you cannot have a system where 50 different states have 50 different systems, and now you get down to the county level or to the city level. The municipal ID cards are fraught with fraud and potential security issues on this. And I don't know if you know this, but basically the Department of Social Services is going to run this program in New York City. And after 2 years, the recipient of the ID card's information is expunged. Now, I don't know how that makes any of us any safer. And the vast majority of these people are here because they want to better their lives. Let's start with that. That's why they're here. But you also have potential criminals. You also have, obviously, in an age of terrorism, and nobody should be more hypersensitive to terrorism than here in the New York metropolitan area. So, I have a heart, but I also have a line and a limit. And I think we've reached it in this country.
My name is Tom. I'm from Coram, New York. And I just want to say, first off, welcome to Suffolk. I'm glad to see you. In addition, I've been concerned a little bit about this railroad strike that's going to be taking place if it happens. And I just want to know, if you were the governor and you were sitting in the office dealing with the MTA, dealing with the union, what kind of solution would you propose to kind of prevent the strike from taking place?
Well, first of all, you cannot toss it back to Congress, as the governor wanted to do. You can't have 27 members of Congress sitting and negotiating, or 435 members of Congress sitting and negotiating. That's ridiculous. There's one person, and really in this instance it's the chairman of the MTA, Tom Pendergrass. But the governor also, who allegedly rode in on a white horse for the MTA contract talks with the buses and subways in New York City, has said he's not going to get involved. I think he needs to be involved directly in this, because it affects an enormous amount of people. it could paralyze an entire economy and region. You got the mayor who's leaving for Italy tomorrow, and you got the governor who says it's not my job. And members of Congress said go back to the table, which is really what they should have said. If in the next couple of days they can't reach a settlement and agreement, then I do believe one other option is a 60-day cooling off period, where we give more time for mediators and everyone else to come in and start ironing things through. If that doesn't happen, they've got to start, the problem is, and I've been on the other side of the negotiations too, you've got to figure out what it is you can afford versus what they're demanding. And I know both sides right here, the MTA has moved a lot. I don't propose to know every minute of the negotiations or what everything they're asking for. But healthcare is one issue that the unions need to give on. I think they've agreed that they would give on some of that. I don't know where they're going to end up. But the governor needs to be involved in this. I would. I mean, you're talking about a major amount of people who were affected. We had a bus strike in 2005 in Westchester. And the county executive at the time, as they were reaching an impasse, went to China on one of his 15 junkets, by the way. And he basically said the same thing Cuomo said, it's not my job. We had a potential bus strike in 2008 in Westchester. I'm sorry, 2012. And we got directly involved in this because it was the county bus system, even though it was an independent contractor who was running our buses for Westchester. But I'll be damned if I'm going to sit there and say, yeah, just call me whenever you think it's working. I mean, yes, sir. Oh, hi. Yeah.
My name is Johanna Servolino. I'm a retired high school teacher.
Where'd you teach?
Global Studies and Economics. I retired in 1997. I'm part of that grade of teachers. I don't think it exists anymore. At any rate, it's not a pat on my back, but that's that generation. Okay, my first question here is, in New York State, I believe that a young person who is illegal is allowed to attend our state universities by paying in-state tuition. Now, a young man or woman from New Jersey who wishes to attend our state universities, which we have a number in New York State, must pay out-of-state tuition. How would you address that issue?
And it's the same thing with...
I have the second question.
Okay, and it's the same thing with the DREAM Act.
Correct.
Now, on all these labels, who's against someone's dreams? Who's against safety and the SAFE Act? Well, what's in the legislation is very important. The DREAM Act, we have a pie. And in that pie is amount of money that people can get tuition assistance. Legal residents of New York State can get legal assistance. Under the DREAM Act, what would happen is anybody, including those who are here illegal, anybody can qualify and tap into that pie, which means the more people that are going into the pie, the less there is for people who are already here. So you either have taxes and increase the pie for everybody, or people who are here, who need it, are going to get shut out. They're not going to get it. So what I have said is, look, then we should not be allowing people who are not citizens to use the same money from tax dollars for people who are residents of New York. I would support there's something called a DREAM Fund, which is private money, corporate money, philanthropists, etc. And if they want to give money out, that's fine. If you want to do that, that's up to them. So, I wanted to say hi to Grant Lally, who is here. Grant is also we have time for maybe, we'll say 3 questions. 3 questions. So you had one already. All right. Who didn't ask a question yet? Yes. Okay. She's been jumping up and down.
Thank you. I will keep my personal opinions about this to myself. But what is your opinion about making New York? Could you and would you and will it ever be a right-to-work state?
Will it? No, because politically it'll never happen in this state. The states that have changed it have seen a big economic boom, but it won't happen. And you know, when Governor Scott Walker came and did a fundraiser for me in New York City, the unions protested. You know, NYPD called and said we're going to set up a big area because there's going to be a big protest, et cetera, et cetera. They, in Wisconsin and other states, have had an economic boom because they've made some tough choices. Now, the political reality in Wisconsin was very different, by the way. The governor, the Senate, and the Assembly were all Republican at the time, so they were able to do some of these things. Understandably, it's not going to happen in New York because of the makeup of the Assembly and even, quite frankly, a lot of the Senate. So the reality is, can we make progress on work rules? We have to. Otherwise, it's going to continue to be a handcuff around our public schools, our communities, our municipalities, our counties, and that's one of the areas when we talk about unfunded mandates, which are killing our property taxpayers. That's one of the things where we can and should, because what can't happen, and often the choices are bad. It's one of two choices. You either raise taxes, and I said no to that, and I'll continue to say no to that, or you have major cuts. And oftentimes that's not good either, because you're talking about layoffs and putting people out of work. You're talking about cuts that are needed. So those are two bad choices. The third choice that we don't have a discussion about here is how do we change the problems that are affecting both of those, and work rules is one of them. And some of the laws that we have that are unique to New York and are way outdated. Even in public construction, for schools, something called the Wicks laws, which drives up the cost about 25% on every project. So there are a lot of these kind of laws that are unique to New York that's got to be reformed at the very least. Two more questions.
Death penalty.
Death penalty. That's a tough one. You know, I got to be very honest with you on this. I was always very much in favor of the death penalty. And I worked at the Catholic Channel. I started at the Catholic Channel. I was hired by the Archdiocese of New York in 2006 to launch the Catholic Channel on Sirius XM satellite radio. And I did a show with Cardinal Egan and then Cardinal Dolan. And I am pro-life. And I was also always very much for capital punishment. And it kind of, and I can justify it too, because one never had a chance, and one did have a chance. So this is one where I've really gone back and forth in my own conscience, and I'm still not there yet, because I do believe in retribution, and I do believe in the crime and punishment fitting each other.
Law enforcement.
Well, you know what? Law enforcement, really any human being, it should be the same. But law enforcement is out there every day. So, if you ask me where I am today, I would be for capital punishment under certain circumstances. But it's something that, you know, and honestly, it's something that in my own conscience I've had to grapple with. One, down to one. Who did? You? Because you waited a lot. Yes.
I'm a registered Democrat.
Yes.
That doesn't necessarily mean that I would, I haven't voted for a Republican. I voted for Jack,
Good.
who ran against another Republican.
Yeah.
But I'm also in New York City public school.
Yep. What do you teach?
I teach English as a second language.
Oh, good.
Immigration is important to me,
Yeah.
but also New York City schools are important.
Sure.
And even though you can say you're for charters, and I'm not opposed to charters, I've been in charter schools in New York City for a long time. But what's happening in New York City is not just people coming up with a good idea and thinking they want to start a school and help the kids. These are for-profit charter schools that are being run by hedge fund billionaires. And the purpose is that they want to move in, they take the space away from the public school students,
The public school students, many of them are still in trailers, they have no safe. What Cuomo did, after de Blasio just tried to limit the number of charter schools, for-profit charter schools, Cuomo said that de Blasio had to pay the rent for the charter schools, even though these charter schools are making money. It's a for-profit industry. They have a one-day fundraiser for Success Academy, and they raise $7 million. So they don't need the public school funds. They don't need to be taking the money away from public school students. So you can say you're for charter schools, and I appreciate that, but I need to know where do you stand for profit charter schools.
Well, I was in Schenectady yesterday, and we had basically a forum on Common Core, and there were people that came from Long Island, Western New York, as far as Rochester, the Albany area, and from all over. And we talked about charters, we talked about Common Core and the curriculum and what it's doing. We talked about a whole bunch of stuff. Now, as I've said, look, who I am is who I am. So I'm not changing on my position on charters in that I do agree with the concept of charters. I have been educated, though, and this is interesting. And what was the name of the high school we were at here in Suffolk? Which one? Comsquad, that's right. And it was a really interesting day because I still remember this. I don't think it was you, though. No, that was the day because after the meeting.
It was the I refuse round.
It was the I refuse. Okay. After the meeting, we went out in the hallway, and a teacher came up to me and said to me, "Where are you on charters?" So I said, I am basically in favor of charters, and she started to tell me about some of the rules and some of the things that quite honestly, I had never known until that moment that they have no oversight whatsoever on the private ones. Which, if they are, as I mentioned before, if they are taking dollars, tax dollars, or if they are getting special breaks that otherwise would go into public education, traditional public education, then they need oversight. There is not a question about it. To me, first of all, I can't believe that there is no oversight for this, which to me is almost unreal. So it's something that I'll look at. I'm evolving on a little bit, but I'm open-minded on some of this stuff. There's no question about it. But let me say, first and foremost, as the product of a public school, as the husband of a special ed teacher, and as 3 kids who are going into public schools, and as my career started on the school board, I believe very, very much in public education. There's not a question about it. And we should be demanding better. There's not a question. We are a state that spends more on public education than any other state in America, and we're in the bottom half of results. We do have to figure out what the problem is, because it's not always necessarily more money. And people on the local level are saying, I can't pay any more taxes. So we got to figure out what the issues are. The unions have to give, the public has to give, but we got to figure this one out, because the way it's going, it's just going to be unaffordable. It's going to be completely unaffordable. So, one more.
I brought punches.
You brought crutches. Oh my gosh, you pulled a handicap card on me. All right. Last question.
Well, if it makes you feel anybody, I went to college in Westchester.
Where'd you go?
I went to the King's College in Rochester.
Oh yeah, no longer there.
In
Yeah.
You shop in Westchester.
You shop in
My name is Dawn, by the way.
Hi,
I
Dawn.
come from St. James. I live in a school district that currently has 8 elementaries, 3 middle, 2 high schools. I pay over $15,000 a year in taxes. And I want to know where you kind of go with the 2% tax cap, because here on Long Island we have a huge discrepancy of what we're taxed, what goes up to Albany, and then the aid our districts get back.
Couple
And
things.
I just...
Yeah, I'm sorry.
The aid that comes back just doesn't quite cut it. And we are closing schools just because we can't keep up. I know some of it's Common Core, I know it's only unfunded mandate, but even before that, we sent so much money to Albany, did not get a proportional amount back, and my daughter, who's now going into 4th grade, in kindergarten started with 28 kids in a class. Can you imagine 28 4- and 5-year-olds with one teacher? You know, God bless them all to do. But every year that she's been in school, her classes have been between 28 and 30 children. And now, put in all the unfunded mandates, we're closing schools
Yep.
and more schools because we can't keep up with sending that much money to Albany and not getting it back. Plus the 2% tax cap, plus he keeps giving incentives to stay below the 2% tax cap. You know, I don't want to be paying more than $15,500 that I'm paying,
Yep.
but I'd rather pay that and have what my kids need.
So here's the deal. First of all, as we know, school boards and school elections budgets are voted on by people. The apathy is unbelievable. People don't come out to vote for this, and it affects them the most in their property taxes. It's probably 60% of your property tax bill, and nobody comes out to vote. On the property tax cap, when the governor introduced this, I was one of the biggest, not critics, because I agree with the property tax cap in theory. However, what I said then is more meaningful today. And what the governor promised then has never been delivered. It was a two-part solution. If you're going to have a property tax cap, you also have to relieve the expenses that the schools and others have to put up with. It's like a water balloon. You can fill it all you want, but if you squeeze it, it's going somewhere else. And that's exactly what's happened. We never took water out of the balloon, we just squeezed it. And part of that was, no. First we're doing the property tax cap, the next step, guaranteed, is mandate relief. There has been no mandate relief whatsoever. And I was almost disinvited to the bill signing because I refused to go along with the party line, and I told people, and I said, right after this press conference, I am going to say that I'm holding you responsible, that if we do not get mandate relief soon, then I'm going to continue to talk about that until we do. So what happened with the budgets now? We've had deficits. The governor took billions in what's called gap elimination. Billions away from local school aid to put into the budget to try to balance the budget, which, by the way, the governor has said we have the essence of a surplus. I love this. For those of you in corporate America, if you say you have the essence of a surplus, you're going to jail. The state comptroller has said no such thing. We've got, all this budget was this year to balance was all one-shots. Going forward, starting next year, we have billions, multiple billions of deficits coming forward. Now, the gap elimination, he took money from local school aid, which has not been replenished for the most part to the levels, and we did not have any relief on mandates, and you've got a property tax cap, which limits what you can take in. So you can see how distorted the whole puzzle is, and it's going to get continuously worse. So again, school districts either have to completely draw down their reserves, they have to increase class size or cut services or have layoffs, which some have done. Where is it going to end? Unless we fix the problem, mandates, of these laws I was talking about, of the work rules, it's going to get worse. It's not going to get better. It's not going to get better on its own. It's got to be fixed. So I continue to say, unless we have significant mandate relief, it's going to get worse.
And are you working on a plan for that?
Yes. So, hold on one second. She played the I'm injured card. I don't care what card you're going to play, I'm leaving. So I want to say this. I have really, truly enjoyed myself tonight. And I love doing these, and I want to do them around the state. We also do tele-town halls, which is, you might get a phone call, and you can just listen in and ask questions as well. But either way, I hope that you walk out, learn a little bit more about me, about what I would do as governor. I hope that if you are inclined to vote for me or to support us, that you do get actively involved. That's the way we will win this race. Because yes, it's uphill, but it is winnable. And I plan on winning it on November 4th. Thank you very much.